Joining us at the table, we have Desiree Perez, CEO of Roc Nation. Enjoy our conversation. Take your seat, get comfortable, because it's time to stay a while. I'm your host, Tommi Vincent. Desiree, welcome to the table.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, can I call you Des, or is it Desiree?
Whatever you like.
So that you know that's a special name to me because my daughter's name is Desiree.
I did not know that.
My oldest daughter, Desiree.
Oh, wow.
We call her Des most of the time for short. So
a lot of people call me Des. I never tell anyone to call me that, but that's my nickname, apparently, among other things. But
not the nickname you chose, though.
Right. Right.
So when you think about Desiree and the woman you've become today, what would you say from your life experience put you in the seat that you sit in today?
I would have to say my childhood, my father, his values, his work ethic. I think that the foundation that you place in children as they're raised, regardless of where they go in their journey or whatever happens, or even if they get off the path, they always get grounded back in by their foundation, and that came from my father.
So what were some of your father's values?
Hard work, humility, always do more than you're supposed to, go above and beyond. But I was raised in the Bronx. And in those days, you had to stand up for yourself. And many times with my dad, I didn't understand it then. I understand it today. It's gonna sound like super cruel, but he would make me fight back. He always had me hanging out with my brother and the boys, and I didn't realize he taught me that there were no gender barriers. I didn't understand that at the time. I never even understood, like, what do you mean? I'm what? I'm a girl? Okay. What does that mean? And he actually had me drive for the first time on the Cross Bronx Expressway when I was 12. So I knew how to drive a tractor trailer by the age of 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time as you were matriculating in your career, where you were in a room and here it is, your dad instilled in you, we're just people and we're doing what we're doing and we do what we need to do, right? You're in this space and all of a sudden someone is indicating that your gender disqualifies you from the opportunity or the conversation. Do you recall that moment?
I mean, that happens every other day, or my last name, or the way I speak, or the way I look. It happens all the time, every single day, at the highest levels. People sometimes say to me, someone told me the other day, still, even in this position, like almost like Roc Nation? And I said, absolutely, even more.
I know for you, you are particularly vested in making sure that you use your platform to advocate for equality for women. Why is that so important to you, and to utilize your influence, if you will, to make sure that that is a forefront issue?
Well, I think that people in general, different kinds of people, whether it's race or color or groups of people who have always been in power, have almost only competed exclusively with themselves. And I think that the threat, the potential of anyone, even if it's a woman, they've almost disqualified that and discounted that intentionally. And it's almost like they don't even think that there's a possibility that could happen. And honestly, if I had to tell you how I do it, I don't. When I say honestly, I say it because I can't take credit for having intentional thoughts.
Yes.
When I'm doing it, when I have 53% of the company is all female, 53%, and they're not just getting coffee, and they're executives in the office. It's intentional because we're not looking at what not to hire at who not to see, at who not to believe, or just because someone doesn't look there's this stigma of how someone is supposed to look to be able to like run something. Apparently, I don't have those stigmas. So when we're hiring people, we're putting people in positions of power. It's because is of their sheer value, skill set, what they bring to the table. It has nothing to do with anything else around their life. It doesn't matter. And so that's just happened organically. It's not that I have like a department that makes sure that we're counting how many people are here of what race and of what gender.
But again, it's the value that your father instills in you
Yeah.
that's showing up, because you weren't taught to look at people differently.
No.
You're looking at, what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
How can you add value? And this is the goal. Can you help us get there?
Yeah. I think one of my most important lessons that my dad taught me, and what you just said made me realize, is the power that I have for who I am, not because of what I happen to be. I didn't choose my gender. I didn't choose any part of me. Right? We're just born into this world, and we don't ask for it, and here we are, and here I am, and that is a power that my father never let me define in a different way other than its power of who I am, the power of who I am. I so happen to be a woman. Have you ever heard when someone says, "You act like a man"?
Yeah, I've heard that. And
Yeah.
and so I grew up, and still very much today. I didn't feel I didn't grow up in a home where it was like a mom does this, a dad does that. I just knew that it felt like my dad and my brother had more power. So it wasn't said that these are the roles. I felt like that they were the ones that looked at as being strong and powerful. And what I knew was I wanted what they had. I didn't know that that was the distinguishing factor, their gender, but I knew, oh, they're the ones that are getting the respect, so I need to do what they're doing. And so I moved through life from that position, just with that information alone.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found interesting when I was looking at your bio was that you talk about some of the amazing things and the opportunities that you were responsible of, spearheading or negotiating for some of the clients that you have at Roc Nation. But there's a good portion of your bio that speaks specifically to philanthropy.
Mhm.
Tell me why that is so important to you personally.
I think, first of all, like I said, I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx, from Bronx, New York. And we grew up thinking in my neighborhood, and in my partners at RocNation, in their neighborhoods, that it was normal for people to be on drugs, for people to go to prison, for 16-year-olds to be pregnant, for, just this, it was our normal. And it's not normal. And so once I found my path, where I was, I don't forget that there's so many more people like me, so many more people like, my neighbor who was killed, or my neighbor who's in prison, or my friends who was abused. And so that trying to make things a little more fair for people, or helping people, is definitely something that we care about as a company. It's part of our values. So we reach back, and we, wherever we can find any injustices or places where we can make a difference with what we have. Sometimes people are fighting a fight for example, Parchman, Mississippi. It's a prison in Mississippi that for years, I mean, they've had 3 federal decrees for the last 30 years. Um, FBI investigated them, I don't even know how many times. Nothing ever happened. And there were organizers that I met on the ground that had been doing this work for a long time and had gotten no movement. And they sued through the federal courts. And we went in, and in less than a year, just because of the power of creating it and making it a national story, we had the Department of Justice get involved. And now that prison is being monitored, and there are changes. There's still a lot of changes that have to come through, but it's not like it was when we got started. It was 2 to 3 people dying a week in that prison. And so it's it's like finding places where people are doing work, but it's not enough because all we can bring is the national attention, the pressure of, oh, you're really not going to do what you're supposed to do. And so that's what we've kind of made our thing. And that's where we get involved in cases like that.
So a few months ago, I had the fortune of going in and speaking to the women in that facility.
Oh, wow.
And to your point of when you're talking about the experiences in your community that are just normal, and this is, I recognize that lens because I also come from that type of community. Not only do I come from that type of community, but that's my story. I had my daughter Des when I was 12.
12?
12. I made enough choices with all the things I did to know I should not be in this chair by all accounts. However, because I got into a relationship that was healthy versus the abusive one that I was in with Troy, my husband Troy, he saw me before I saw myself, and it allowed me to have the opportunity to see myself through the lens of someone else and grab a hold to his coattail and go for the ride until I saw myself. And when I was in that facility speaking to the women, I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to see people and not see what they've done, but to see that that person is just like me. And I just had someone that believed in me, that gave me the opportunity. So if I can go in and I can give hope and I can encourage, then there's opportunity for them to grab a hold to my words, and that they'll hit at the right time and they can become everything that they rightfully should be. Elf has done it again. Another Super Bowl and another successful commercial campaign. Last year, Jennifer Coolidge had herself in a sticky situation with Elf Power Grip Primer. And this year, world-renowned Judge Judy, or in this case, Judge Beauty, presided over Elf Court by making verdicts on beauty with her mandate to serve eyes, lips, facts. Judge Judy was handing down verdicts for overpriced beauty. It's a crime. And in Judge Judy's court, you can be found guilty of reckless beauty spending. A daily use of Elf is the only sentence that will leave you glowing with innocence. Because in Judge Judy's court, it's in Elf we trust. So I'm really encouraged by the approach that you all take with the work that you're doing, knowing that you have a platform that has this power to make change, to be the catalyst of accountability, and to shine the light. In the perfect world, in the work that you're doing, what is the one issue that you would plant your flag in and say, we're going to change this immediately?
So many things. I first want to say, I thought, I had a son at 16. So I know what that means and I know how hard that is. And I was also in a very abusive relationship. And my husband and my family who I'm with now, my partners at RocNation Nation, that's what changed my life. It's people believing in me also. So we're similar in that way. I wanted to acknowledge that. And then I also want to acknowledge that part of what I do, and when I see people, I don't see any difference between them and I. And that's why I care so much, because I know that they could be better, that they could be more, and that there's a future in people's lives that doesn't have to be their normal, like it was for me at the time. If I had to change something that I could change just at the snap of a finger, oh my God, there's so many things. But it has to be something like the NFL or something like a Parchment or, and I don't mean to compare them, but meaning a place that has opportunity for so many people. It has to be something that is massive, that can make the change. Because I think regardless of where you go in all these different industries and all these different institutions and all these different formats, rules, and it's kind of like the old guard has created these things, like prison, for example, kind of why was that created and how, and those are the rules that we're still living by. But yet, if we go back 100 years, There's a lot of things that were happening then that can't happen now, but we're still living with those rules and we're still living with those institutions. And why is that? We know that they were created for certain reasons. And so I would say that I would go to the biggest, massive, most volume place and go there and stake a flag in the ground and say, this is how we're going to do things now. And honestly, I don't even want to change what is. What I want to change is how they see people, how they see us, how they see us. No, we don't. We, whether it's a male looking at a female with a, misogynistic view, or if it's a person a person looking at a person of color with a certain stigma, thinking that they don't have those. A lot of people don't have those credentials and don't have those experiences because of the system, and because they can't have those opportunities. And until we don't change those things, and until we don't help each other, and until we don't open those doors, and we don't start helping people get those experiences, we're gonna be stuck. And it's an ugly place. And unfortunately, even for people who do this, it's gonna be an ugly world for them also, because we're not gonna stay in our backyards, right? So we're all at some point coming together in a place, and it's called the world. And we're gonna see each other, and we're gonna have to deal with each other. And it's how we do that matters. And so that's why it's so important for all these big institutions, including the NFL. We're sitting here in Super Bowl weekend, that they take every measure to create that change.
And I appreciate that. And I just know, for when I think about, and you just reflected on some of your experience growing up and my experience growing up, I can't imagine not having the opportunity just to live a little more, for it to click for me to recognize, to make better choices in my life, to have the opportunity to grow and to mature into life. How many people would not have had the ability to be impacted by the gifts that are inside of me? Because we all have, every person. So thank you for transparency in that way. And thank you for your time today. I know that you're busy with all the things that Roc Nation is handling here at the Super Bowl, and you took time to come and to sit with me. So I want you to know that I appreciate it.
I thank you for wanting to have me, and anytime that you need me, I'd be here.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.